Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Celtics Talk Radio Live post-game chat. This is episode number 33. We are going to recap the Game 3, Round 2 Eastern Conference semifinals between number 2 Boston Celtics and number 3 Eastern Conference Philadelphia 76ers. In exciting game, the game thriller, one classic between the Celtics and Sixers right now. The Celtics defeated the Sixers after overtime 101-98. The game after the 48 minutes ended tied 89-89. In exciting finish, Al Horford first scored the bucket over Robert Covington on lob pass from Marcus Morris after the Brad Stevens genius Ato play. And then, after it, Horford stole the ball and hit the free throws and practically sealed the deal from the Celtics. The Celtics could lose if the last shoot of Marco Bellinelli was actually three, just like Brett Brown designed it. Brett Brown said after the game that the last shoot and the Sixers had the Celtics had lead 89-87 after with 1.7 seconds left in the fourth period, and Brett Brown called timeout, wrote on Ato, and Brett Brown stated after the game that Ato intended to be runaway three from Marco Bellinelli. On that play, Terry Rozier make defensive mistake because he lost his man. In that particular play, Brad Stevens told the Celtics not to switch anything. Tatum stayed with his guy at the paint, and Rozier lost Bellinelli and tried to grab him for the jersey, but eventually lost him, and Bellinelli, without any contest, hit the shot and the regulations. After that shot, the crowd in Philly thought that the game was won, that it was three, and actually one official called the three and the other called two. And even Brett Brown candid towards Celtics bench to shake hands with Stevens. And after watching replay, it was re-established that Bellinelli stepped at the line, that it was two, and that the game is entering to regulations. Before this play, Terry Rozier stole the ball, and Brown gave the Celtics lead 89-87. The Browns scored the last four games in the regular time for the Celtics. In the overtime, that was exciting. The Sixers had, the lead, 5 points lead thanks to Bellinelli and JJ Redick. They were hot, but the Celtics, started chipping in with Tatum isolation plays, and also Terry Rozier scored important bucket, and of course our hero Al Horford, couple of isolation shoots, and eventually the Celtics were better at the very end of at the very end of first overtime. And Horford was a hero, and the Celtics are leading 3-0, and they will have the chance to sweep the series in Philadelphia tomorrow, Monday, in 6 p.m. Eastern, in Wells Fargo Center. I must say that in the series, this year's series, Boston is leading 6-1, so nobody can say that the Celtics are leading 3-0 by accident, because we defeated this Philadelphia Sixers team by 6-1, including two 22 points turnarounds from the Celtics. The first time in London, 11th January, and the second time in Game 2 in Boston, when Boston won 108-103. So practically after Sixers had 6 days rest, and Celtics played 1 day before the Game 1 with Milwaukee, the Game 7, literally the Celtics, had blowout win, 117-101 in the first game. The narrative from the national medias, odds makers and NBA experts that just don't want to admit that they are stupid, that they are idiots, they are wrong. The narrative was, and from Philadelphia medias, was that, the Sixers lost their touch. They didn't play 6 days, and the Sixers will be fine when they, took off the rust. And indeed, in the game number 2, the Sixers, Daniel, gave us their best punch, their best push that they have inside them in those first 18 minutes of the game 2, 22 points. But guess what? It was not enough. Those Celtics are so resilient that they never give up. And the Celtics made 30-point swing, 48-18 in the game 2. And they won that game 2. And everybody thought that the Philly will win. Now the narrative, coming back to Philadelphia for the games 3 and 4, the narrative was that the Sixers are still the favorites in the series. The Sixers were at Vegas, and every single odd makers, the Sixers are, Danny, the favorites for the game 4, 6 and 5 points handicap on the Celtics. For the game number 1 and 2, the Sixers were 5 points favorites. For the game number 3, the Sixers were 9.5 points favorites. How in the world those NBA guys just don't respect the Celtics? I'm not clear. Now, I don't care about it, but the narrative coming to Philadelphia was that, the Sixers are so good at the home court, and the crowd in Philadelphia is the best in NBA. They won the Super Bowl. Wow. Villanova won NCAA tournament, March Madness. So the Sixers will now go to the finals. They will challenge the title and the Warriors. Stephen A. Smith said it. So that was the narrative, The best crowd in the game, which is not true. The hottest home court in the NBA. The best young team in the NBA, which is not true. The Celtics are younger than them, and the Celtics are third youngest team in the NBA. All those things has been said. Just go to the toilet after last night's game. The Celtics now need to refocus on Monday and sweep the series so that they focus on the Eastern Conference Finals now after Cavaliers and LeBron James once again humiliated the LeBron chokers from Toronto, and they are leading 3-0. So the Celtics need to finish off the Sixers so fast Monday until, in my country, you have the proverb, Danny, do the things until the situation is hot. This situation is hot. We saw the reports from Philadelphia medias, and we enjoyed it, that on the training, it was like the funeral atmosphere in Philadelphia. So, if the Celtics do not finish the Sixers Monday, they could regain their self-confidence. Remember, they are a young team. We have them, with the leg on their throats. If we don't finish them up like a boxer doing to another boxer that is in knockdown, but it's not knockout yet. If we don't finish them yet, they could recover. They could come back in Boston Wednesday night. They could steal the game 5, and then the series could be reopened again with media push. So, everything is fine. The Boston is revelation of the playoffs. Stevens is genius. Al Horford is monster. And Terry Rozier revelation. Jason Tatum shot his rookie of the year, obviously. And we could enjoy it. But we need to get the job done. Danny, the first impressions.
This was a statement with Igor by this Boston Celtic team. You look at the situation they were facing going into that game. You're up 2-0, but everybody is still counting you out. You said it that everybody still had Philadelphia as the favorite to win the series and to win that game. Philadelphia, the players were, talking a bunch of stuff after the last game, especially Joel Embiid saying that, Philadelphia fans, that the Boston fans ain't nothing like the Philly fans. You go into that game, and after having to deal with the issues you had in round 1 when it comes to games on the road, I'm sure many fans, including myself, were kind of wondering what were we going to get from these Boston players. Al Horford started the game off a little bit slow, but he came up big when it mattered most, getting that, game-winning layup and the game-winning, steal and all that. I'll get to that in a moment. But you also had, Jason Tatum, who continues to be, arguably the best player for this Boston Celtic team. You can argue maybe it's Rozier. Some might say it was Horford. It's Horford. But I do feel that Jason Tatum in this series has been the Boston Celtics' best player. He has taken advantage of the matchups that he has basically had like he is supposed to do. He is proving that Ben Simmons ain't nothing anywhere near him in this case, and he is also making Danny Ainge look like a genius for basically going the route and robbing the Philadelphia 76ers of a first-round draft pick for next year. As we all know that the Philadelphia 76ers traded us an additional first-round draft pick and the rights to Jason Tatum in exchange to the rights for Fultz, and Fultz hasn't even really had a chance to play in this series. He's just sitting there on the bench, so Jason Tatum is making Danny Ainge look like a genius and making Ben Simmons just continue to look worse and worse, and that's what everybody's saying, that Ben Simmons deserves the Rookie of the Year award. Then you have Jaylen Brown, who, was supposed to be on a minutes restriction in this game yesterday. And, Brad Stevens, knowing that the Celtics had a chance to win this game and it was going to overtime, ended up asking Jaylen Brown for him to decide if he felt that he was confident enough to go out there and play in the overtime period, and if he felt that there was a risk that he didn't want to go out there and take a chance, that Brad Stevens, would not have a problem with it, that he'll, find somebody else who wanted to go and take the minutes. And, of course, Jaylen Brown, we all know he has been desperate to play in these games as of late. I give Jaylen Brown credit for going back out there and continuing to play, and he played some big minutes, and he also had some pretty big baskets, some pretty big plays, and it is crucial because he has been, one of our best players this year. Again, he is just starting his career. He's only got in his second year, while Tatum's, in his first, and it is debatable over who's going to be the better Celtic, and who will be here longer. But this was a statement win, Igor. No matter how you look at it, no matter how, people try to give an excuse by saying, that the 76ers blew it thanks to the, situations with the bad passes, the turnovers late, that it pretty much came down to who was going to make the execution plays late, who was going to screw up late, things like that, which pretty much the Celtics were the ones that ended up making the crucial plays down the stretch, while the 76ers had chances in both overtime and regulation to win the game, and both times they screwed it up, and that's how everybody's going to see it. It was pretty funny what we saw with the confetti coming down after the 76ers thought they won the game with a three-pointer. There, the coach ends up leaving the floor, walking away, putting his finger up like with a number one, in this case, and then they have to go back and get him and tell him that, coach, you didn't win the game. You got to get back to the floor because it was only a 2 in this case by Bellinelli, so you got to go to overtime. I can only imagine how he must have felt and how embarrassed he must have felt pretty much in that hallway or in the locker room if he made it all the way back. But you got to give this team credit. You got to give Brad Stevens credit for the decisions he made and the plays he ended up, drawing up, especially that play to Al Horford. That Al Horford ended up getting that pass inbounded to him, and he ended up having Covington on him, and he sealed Covington off by making him sealed underneath the hoop, so that if Covington in this situation was to try and play any sort of defense, it would put pressure on the officials. So when Horford went to the ball, or should I say went up for the layup, Embiid tried rushing towards Horford so that he could try to basically go and block it from behind, but because of how quick Horford went up, it made it where Embiid, if he went up to block it, either his hand would go up into the hoop, making it where the officials would have to call a goaltend or the officials would have to call a foul in this case.
Danny Covington wanted to commit a foul, and my opinion is that he actually committed the one, because he was grabbing Horford with all his strength, but Horford is big guy, and Covington cannot do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Igor. He should have been given the right to go to the free throw line. It's unfortunate that, despite the fact that Al Horford is an all-star, he doesn't get the right calls and the proper calls he should be getting. Someone like Joel Embiid, who hasn't really proven much in this league, hasn't done a darn thing, will get a call like that made in his favor, but yet Al Horford, somebody who is an established veteran, hasn't, he hasn't won a championship, but he's done way more than Embiid has, and yet he gets that type of a call. But again, this still is a statement win, no matter how you look at it, and there's no denying it. Boston ended up having to play this game with 4 of their best players in foul trouble, and that includes Marcus Smart fouling out midway to the 4th, and then, and more importantly, the best player when it comes to defending Joel Embiid, which was Aaron Baines. He ended up having 5 fouls. We all know what Aaron Baines has done to Joel Embiid in this series. So the fact that you end up having Aaron Baines pick up 5 fouls in this game, you saw how Embiid acted the moment that Aaron Baines picked up his 5th foul. Embiid, forget it. He started attacking Baines, trying to get him to foul out because of the fact that Baines has been somebody who has done a really great job in this series, holding Embiid down and not letting him have his way the way that Embiid had in round 1 against Hassan Whiteside of the Miami Heat. And so when Brad Stevens finally took, Baines out to get Morrison to try and get some offense, he switched Horford on, and Horford did a really good job of just trying to stay in front of Embiid and making it where Embiid would have to shoot over him rather than basically giving him any, dunks and layups. And it was pretty much, a 50-50 shot each and every time at that point. And we all know Embiid is not really, consistent or decent shooter. He's more of a layup and dunks person. And, of course, we all know, and, of course, we'll get to this about Embiid's, comments after the game. But to me,
I wanted to ask you right now. You wrote excellent post at our page, We Believe in Celtics Fans Forum, that the people can see it. Do you think that Philadelphia 76ers and Embiid have actually any right to complain about the officiating in the game number 3? Because as far as I saw it, they had to use very soft term, home court officiating, 8th degree.
Well, it was pretty pathetic, basically. If I try to put on my best Stephen A. Impersonation here, it was pretty pathetic. Joel Embiid coming out, of the game like that and immediately going after the officials. This boy, basically, you look at him. You've had 3 games in this series so far. Game 1, you ended up having a 35-19 free throw edge in your team's favor, and you got your ass whooped by 16 by this Boston Celtics squad that we all know in that game Jaylen Brown did not get to play at all. So you had an even bigger advantage in this case because Boston was missing one of their top players in that game. And yet you had in that game, of course, was in Boston. It wasn't in Philly. And the officials went your way in that game, and you lost by 16. I guess 19, Igor, is 16 free throws more than 35. So we won that game by 16 because of the free throw discrepancy. So
maybe he thinks that fair officiating would be if Philadelphia has 40 free throws more than the Celtics.
Yeah, knowing him, that's probably the way it is.
In game 2, the officiating was pretty much right down the middle. You held a 22-point lead in that game in the second quarter. Of course, we all know that Jaylen Brown, was playing, coming off the bench. He was not, playing in a starter's role. He was playing in a limited minutes, restriction. So you already had, a bigger advantage in that situation. Due to that fact, you had a fair game in this situation, which, in my opinion, Igor, this was the only game thus far out of the 3 games that the officiating was basically fair between the two teams, where the free throws and the foul situation was, completely, roughly the same. You had a 22-point lead in that game, and you blew it within a matter of minutes. It wasn't like the Celtics managed to come back from that 22-point lead, that 22-point deficit over, several quarters. No, they came back within a matter of 4 minutes or so, less than 4 minutes, to make it a 5-point game going into the halftime, break in this situation. So you got no reason to argue in regards to that game. And then in the third, game, you're on your home court in this case, in front of your home fans, after you basically went the route of saying that the Boston fans were nothing, after you've made 2 excuses, 2 games in a row for why basically you ended up losing the games in Boston. Game 1, it was rust. Game 2 was just that your shots weren't going down and you basically screwed up on defense, and that you were taking atonement. You was putting the blame on yourself for not basically making the defense in this situation. So game 3 now, it comes around. And in this case, now all of a sudden it's the officials, and you think automatically you're entitled to the calls. As I said earlier, Igor, when you look at this case, you had 4 of the Celtics' key players all go into foul trouble, with each of them having 3 or more fouls. Jason Tatum had 3 fouls called on him in the first half, where Brad Stevens had to literally remove him from the game because he didn't want Tatum picking up a 4th foul before he went into halftime. You had Jaylen Brown, who finished with 4. You had Marcus Smart, who ended up fouling out midway through the 4th quarter, as I said earlier, and we all know how critical Marcus Smart can be when it comes to defending certain players. And then you had Aaron Baines, who was the key defender against Joel Embiid, going with 5 fouls. And like I said, the moment that he had 5 fouls, you had Embiid just continuously attacking Aaron Baines, trying to get him to foul out in this case. And that, Aaron Baines, he avoided it by letting Embiid score, and the Celtics just ended up, matching the basket, matching them basket for basket until Brad Stevens took Embiid out to put Horford in. But we know why he's doing this. He's trying to make it where technically he's trying to influence the officials for Game 4 to try and give him, the foul calls he needs to try and score. You look at them, Igor, on their side. Embiid is the only one that went above 4 fouls in this game. He fouled out in this situation, so he matched up Marcus Smart. So both teams had one person foul out in this game, each one with a starter. Then you had Marco Bellinelli on the, 76ers side, who ended up with 3 fouls. Nobody else, Igor, on the 76ers ended up finishing with more than 1 foul. So technically, in this situation, everybody on that 76ers team after Bellinelli and Embiid was 1 foul or 0 in this case. Yet Boston had in this situation 4 players, each of them being a key player in this case, that ended up coming away with 3 fouls or more. And then yet Embiid, you're gonna actually say that you have that you're not happy with the officiating, brother. Game 1, you had, like I said, 16 free throws more, And then today, you have more free throws on your home court. You end up having more fouls called against the Boston Celtics on your home court. I guess Igor, this guy, unless he has 50 free throws given to him, he's not gonna be happy about it in this case. It is pretty pathetic, and the fact that you gotta stoop to that level now, in my opinion, the fact that you gotta stoop to that level and make it where you gotta start complaining about the officials in this case and trying to get try to go the route where you're saying I need calls to be made in my favor. I don't know how anybody can defend me without, some sort of call being made. That just shows pretty much you're admitting in this case that you ain't got what it takes to beat this Celtics team on talent alone. You are admitting that you and Ben Simmons are not all that everybody's made you and all you're cracked up to be, and you know that you're going to need the officials to help you in this case in order to beat us. The fact that you have done that and you've pretty much come out like that, to me it's pretty pathetic, Igor, in this case on this guy's part, and there's no way that we should be allowing these guys to win. If that's what it's going to take, it's going to look pathetic on us if we allow them to walk away with victory in this series for that.
So we practically know now, Daniel, the excuses from Philadelphia 76ers side. The game one, the rust, too much rest. The game two, they were not lucky. They say it. The game three, officiating. What will be the game four? I just wonder if they lose it. Confetti or some unknown forces, we will see. Anyway, about confetti situation that I found really amusing. Serhat Sohi, the NBA reporter, wrote, excellent line. The confetti dropping early is symbolic of how the process has prematurely been dubbed a success, even though the Sixers haven't won anything. I'm very smart. Please support me on Patreon for the full take. This was beautifully said by Sophie, and I congratulated her. That's about the confetti, Let us talk about the Celtics and our performance, because that's what we care about. Jason Tatum, last night, in elite company, he scored 20 points in 5 straight games. It breaks a tie with Larry Bird, 1980, for the most consecutive 20 points games by the Celtics rookie in the postseason. And if anybody out there, the Celtics fans, tell me that Jason Tatum is not talented, I will tell you right away that you are one idiot. So, Jason Tatum is a special. I'm just going to say about Jason that he continues to do the great job creating the space between himself and his defender with the jab steps, with the first step, shooting fakes, turnarounds. He's tough cover with his ability to take you off the bounce, stretch the floor, and understands how to move without the ball, and he knows how to use curl screens to get the free shoots. Terry Rozier woke up with 80 points away after having 22 points average in Garden and 11 points vice versa in Milwaukee in the first round. In the first away series, Terry Rozier had 18 points. Not the best game, but still very, very good one. And he had 0 turnovers for Terry Rozier in the last 2 games, spanning 82 minutes. This is good. For Philadelphia, all I'm going to say, if they want to win the game 1, Robert Covington needs to be better. He's been the star of the night. Then a dude to next. Not just this series, but entire career. We have especially seen this series with goose eggs in games 1 and 3. In games 1 and 3, Robert Covington combined 0 for 14 for 4 points. Last night, 0 for 8. In the game number 1, 0 for 6. 4 points. And in game 2, 22 points in 15 shoots. Now, he was not efficient, but he was better in the game 2. If Philadelphia want to win, they need from Robert Covington the game 2 performances. Now, this series overlook. Okay, we will come to statistics a little later. Just to say, what was wrong at the halftime with the Celtics? They, having been on the short end of 25-8 run by the Sixers, the Celtics trailed only 51-43 thanks to the Browns' 3. What was the issue in the first half? Number 1, the foul trouble. Tatum and Brown each had 3 personal fouls at the halftime. Marco Bellinelli, 2 personal fouls, the only Philly player that had more than 1 at the halftime. So, at the end of the game, everyone that hated Marcus Morris, his Twitter at @MookMorris2, they need to be giving so much love to Mook Morris, because the Celtics don't win the game without his perfect inbound pass. The Celtics stole the inbound pass. After that, they fouled out Embiid, and they got Horford to the free throws lines. And plus, they left Philly with 0 timeouts, so that they executed from their basket. They could not move the ball up the floor. So again, the Celtics do not win without Marcus Morris' perfect inbound pass after the second Brad Stevens timeout. The second thing, the Celtics stole the inbound pass after the Horford basket, then fouled out Embiid, 6 foul, and got Horford on the line to the free throw line, and they left Philly with 0 timeouts. Do you want to comment this segment, Daniel, before we go to analyzing of the numbers?
No, you can bring up the numbers.
Okay. One moment. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to analyze the Boston Celtics Philadelphia numbers in the game number 3. Largest lead of Boston 10. Largest lead of Philadelphia 7. Fast break points 16-5 Philadelphia. Fast break points plus 11 Philadelphia. That is one of the key of the series, as we said it, Danny. You must stop the 3-point shoot of Philadelphia. Number 2, you must stop their transitional game. They live out of transition. They feed out of transition. They won Miami by going into fast break series, and they had the 2 strokes the last night. One stroke was at the end of the first quarter, the last 5 minutes, and the second stroke was the last 5 minutes of the second quarter, when the Celtics just had offensive lulls, and Philadelphia, and you know, the Celtics just lost composure. They could not defend the Philadelphia 76ers fast break offense. The Celtics could not protect the paint. The Celtics could not clean the glass, could not grab defensive rebounds. The Sixers had too many second chance points and offensive rebounds in the game. We will talk about that a little later. And in that, those two stretches, in the first they went 12-0 run with 2 threes from, if I'm correct, Ilyasova and Bellinelli. And in the second quarter, they went on 13-0 run with the 3 3-pointers. Fast break points 16-5, Philadelphia plus 11. We must do it better. Points in the paint, Boston 46, Philadelphia 48. Actually, Danny, that is testament of Aaron Baines, Mook Morris, and Al Horford built a wall in the paint and did not left Embiid to operate unguarded down low. So we defended Embiid perfectly in the game, and that was one of the keys of success. Points in the paint plus 2, Philadelphia, but Philadelphia used to outscore opponents 10 plus in the paint. So this was successful defense by the Celtics. And also successful offense in the paint. The bench points, another key, Celtics 30 and Philly 30. It was tied. Now, I will tell you in a minute how or not. Okay. Practically the bench points battle is tied. We must be tied or to win the bench battle in order to win every game. We said it, and we did that task. It was tied, 30 and 30 from the benches, and it was good. Another parameter, the second chance points, Danny. The second chance points, surprisingly, Boston won it at the end, 10-8, but it was 8-0 in one period of the game. Why? Because Philadelphia out-rebounded us 50-49, and in offensive rebounds, we saw that 76ers had 13 offensive rebounds, and on the other side, the Celtics had 9 offensive rebounds. But the Sixers from 13 rebounds had just 8 points, and the Celtics from 9 offensive rebounds, they had like 10 points. What does it tell you, Daniel? It is telling you that the Celtics defended the second chance attacks of Philadelphia 76ers so well. Let me tell you this. The second chance points, the Celtics shoot it 4 of 8. That is 50%. And the second chance points, the Sixers shoot it 4 of 14. Now, that is around 35-36%. So, do you see it, Danny, that the defense in the second chance attacks was so good, especially interior defense of the Boston Celtics? Okay, now, points in the paint, as I said, the Celtics 46, the Sixers 48. Let us see the efficiency. Points in the paint, the Celtics 23 out of 36. Then this is 70%. And the Sixers 24 out of 50 in the paint. 24 out of 50 in the paint. Majority Embiid and Šarić and Ilyasova. So what is that telling you? The Sixers shoot it bunnies like 45-48%. And the Celtics shoot it bunnies like 75%. This is efficiency. And also, this is credit to the Celtics interior defense. But in those two stretches, when we lost composure in the second and the first quarter, it was totally unexcusable. Because that's where the Sixers built the lead with the fast break points. Fast break points, 16 Sixers, 5 of 6 realization, all threes, and majority of the threes, excuse me. They had 4 threes, 1, 2 fast break points, and 2 free throws. The Celtics had 2 of 3 fast break points. So we didn't run the counter attack, but that was part of tactics. 15 lead changes, 12 ties in the game. And finally, Danny, the final parameter that we are here addressing before we go to individual game performances, analysis, the 3-point line. We learned, Danny, from the series, and we said it in the keys of the game, didn't we? What is the key of the series? One of top 4 keys. Defending the 3-point line and scoring threes on the other end. In other words, controlling the perimeter and winning the 3-point line battle. We're not only watching the bench battles, we're not only watching the second chance points battle, the fast break points battle, but we especially watch the bench battles and the 3-point battles. In the first game, we won the 3-point line battle plus 36. In the game 2, we won the 3-point line battle plus 6. In the game 3, we won the 3-point battle by 3. What is this telling you, Danny? The Sixers are dependent one-on-one on the 3-point shooting. If the Sixers do not win the 3-point battle, and if they do not shoot lights out of their threes, they do not have any chance to win the game 4. Okay? And the Celtics shooted bad for threes. 10 out of 38. Some of the threes were bad. Majority of the shots, the Sixers contested well. But 26% for threes, but 10 made threes. This is important. Away, 10 made threes. And also, the Sixers shooted bad too. 30%, 9 of 30. So the Celtics won plus 3, the 3-point line shot. And also, the idiots that are saying that the Sixers are missing the threes in the first game when they shot it 90%. What did I say, Danny? I explained in the last show, 203 with Evan Valenti. We explained how the Celtics have principles of guarding the 3-point line. And we explained that the Celtics are number 1 team in defending the 3-point line. Didn't we? You can listen at Block Talk Radio Show number 203, the first hour. We explained that. I'm not going to repeat all. But the people that are saying that it was by accident the Sixers scored 5 threes out of 26 attempts in the first game. Where are those people right now? How the Sixers scored 9 threes, 30% out of 30 threes? Tell me that. The answer is the Celtics defense. We are not contesting Embiid and double teaming him, except in the rare stretches when we lose our minds. And we are staying on the shooters. We have personnel and we are bugging the Sixers, doubling team, blitzing them on the 3-point line, except Bellinelli. You cannot blitz that guy. He's hitting the circus shoots. And, you cannot do anything about it. If just if Bellinelli hits the circle shoots, you cannot do anything about it, But the Celtics are playing a great defense, and that is the key. Now, tell me your impressions, your point of view about those keys that I mentioned.
Well, the fast break point, or should I say the second chance points, simply comes down to one thing: keeping Embiid out of the paint. Embiid is really the only or should I say rebounder they have on the team there. Unless they attack, the rim with the small guys like we saw late last night in in that like the final, not the final possession for Philly, but the one prior to that, where Embiid ends up missing the shot and Simmons was able to get the offensive rebound with a bunch of guys there, trying to get the rebound together. And of course, everybody is critical of Simmons because of the fact that rather than pulling the ball out, he ended up throwing the ball straight up, back towards the hoop. And many people feel that was Simmons, doing that because he didn't want the Celtics fouling him so that he could go to the free throw line, because Simmons is a terrible free throw shooter. Unless you get something like that where those other guys are attacking the rim for the rebound because, either they're down late or it's a tie game late and they're trying to get the extra possession, you don't see anybody else on that team crashing the board, for the rebound. It's Embiid on his own trying to work for the rebound. Everybody else stays out near the perimeter. Unless the ball is a long rebound and it bounces right to them, they don't go for it, And so for us, it was all about Baines, Horford, Morris, somebody getting a body on this guy and making it where it was a foot race for our other guys to outrun whoever from Philly decided, oh, I'm going to go for it, rather than running back down the court. And in most cases, it rarely ever happens. If it's a loose ball, they'll, forget about it. They'll run back up the court to make sure that their defense was set and our guys were able to go for it because of the fact that they're basically shooting threes. You're not really seeing a bunch of layups. So that's the key for that, for the second chance points. And like I said, the only one you see getting second chance points is usually Embiid, getting the rebound and slamming it in or getting layups, things like that. And so, you stop him from getting the second chance points, you pretty much stop the entire team from getting second chance points. When it comes, to, the other, issues you brought up, or the other, key stats that you mentioned, the defense and all that, well, you're facing the same situation that you did in Milwaukee, Igor. A team that has a dominant big man in the middle, surrounded by a bunch of three-point shooters. And how did you beat Milwaukee? You let Antetokounmpo go off, and you tried to stop all the three-point shooters. You're facing the same exact scenario now with Embiid and the three-point shooters on Philly. Only issue is that Embiid is a bigger, heavier, stronger big man than Antetokounmpo is. Which is why, unlike the first round where you needed a smaller, faster guy to go at it with Antetokounmpo, which is why you threw Semi Ojeleye into the mix in those last last 2 or 3 games in order for you to actually win the series. This time around, you had no choice but to go back to the regular starting lineup to put Baines in over Ojeleye because you needed somebody who had the same big body to bang with Embiid. So that's why Baines has gotten the nod. And by going that route, where you're just making it where you're playing him straight up, you're allowing your other guys to stay at home on the three-point shooters, and you're telling Redick, you're telling Simmons, you're telling Saric, you're telling, Covington, you're telling Bellinelli, you're telling Ilyasova, you're telling, McConnell, all these other guys. You're going to take your shots, but you're going to take it, where there's somebody in front of you. You're going to take it with a hand in your face. Unless it's a pick and roll where our guys have a miscommunication or it's in transition and our guys basically don't play the transition game, on the defensive side perfectly, where they're watching who's going where, you're not going to get a wide open shot. And like I said, that was the bread and butter for them in game one, or should I say in round one. They were going to Embiid, and because the Miami Heat don't have any decent bigs except for Whiteside, and Whiteside, we all know, he hasn't been the same since he had that injury to him. He had that injury earlier in his career. That guy is not capable of defending Embiid. Embiid had his way with him in that first round matchup. And so every time Embiid was on the floor, Miami was focusing on trying to get the ball away from Embiid so that Embiid would not basically posterize Whiteside. But every time they did it by bringing somebody over to try and help double team Embiid and make it where the ball was given up. But because of it, Embiid gave it up to whoever was the wide open man, and either they took the three or somebody would rush over to try and stop the wide open man just for the ball to go over to the man that he left, and they would take the three. So the ball would keep moving. In this case, because we're telling Embiid, we are fine with you posterizing Baines or posterizing Horford. You go ahead and do whatever you want because you yourself are not going to be enough to stop us. It's making it where Redick and all of them are not having the type of performances we've seen in round one because of the fact that they ain't getting the wide open shots that they're used to. So their guys are not warming up. They're not getting into a groove the way that they did in round one, and it's making it difficult. The guys that they expect to have those big games scoring almost 20 points each are being held to either single digits, 1 point a game, something like that, or, Redick, for example, he's been the only one, I think you can say, the only player outside of Embiid who's had a pretty decent series so far, Igor, in terms of the guys that shoot the three. He's the only one with Embiid who has had a decent series for Philadelphia. Boston has found a way to shut down everybody else in this series. You can say, technically, Embiid and Redick have basically taken the role of Antetokounmpo and the other guy we played in round one.
Middleton.
Yeah, Middleton. Those two guys basically are taking Antetokounmpo and Middleton's roles in this series. Boston managed to shut down everybody else almost in round one. There was a few games where you had like Henson and all the guys having, some good performances. But for the most part, you managed to shut them down, which is why you walked away victorious. Here, it's the same thing. Redick and Embiid are having the great performances, and then you're getting some decent performances from a few other guys on, every other game type, basis, but you're not getting a consistent, good performance from each and every one of these guys because Boston has made it. Embiid, you're going to be the one to beat us. We can accept Redick maybe having a good game because Redick himself is not going to score no 30 or 40 points with you scoring 30 or 40, but we are not going to make it a 3, 4, 5-man big-time performance type game. And that's what it's going to take for Philly to beat us. So the defense has been absolutely tremendous in this series for the most part. Yeah, there's been a few blips on the radar here and there. And in this case, you can say the times where we've gone down has really been not so much because of our defense, but because the offense hasn't gotten into a groove at the very start of the game. I think you can say that's the reason why we went down by 22 in that second game, Igor, because the offense didn't start flowing at the very beginning of the game like Philadelphia's did. But once you kind of, got yourself moving on the offense, you quickly chopped that lead down to 5 within a matter of minutes. The defense has been incredible. Brad Stevens has got to be given all the credit in the world, along with, this team. And like I said, unless Philadelphia finds some sort of way where they try to get all these other three-point shooters getting into a groove at the very beginning of the game, we're going to eliminate them tomorrow night because I don't see anything changing with the way Boston is playing this defense and the way their game plan is going. And pretty much everybody seems to be saying it. The brooms are going to come out tomorrow. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Again, what do you think about Baines' defense on Embiid?
Well, to me, Baines, again, we all knew he was going to go back into the starting lineup once you went at it with Embiid because of how big Embiid has been. And the good thing about Baines is because he's got the body. You know, you compare Baines to Whiteside. Whiteside is a tall guy like Baines, but Baines is more of a heavier type person in this case. You know, he's a wider body, while Whiteside, you know, is not as wide as Baines is. And so Baines, you know, I do feel a little bit sorry for him for how, you know, some of the crappy calls that have gone against him in this series. But again, we can all expect that because Embiid is basically, you know, arguably the best player on that team. And so he is going to get the benefit of the whistle in some cases. But, you know, Baines has managed to get the job where he's basically made it where he is banging bodies with Embiid, making it where he is not backing down. He is not allowing Embiid to basically bang into him and make it where he goes backwards. He is making it where Embiid has gotten no choice but to shoot over him, whether it's a floater, whether it's a hook shot, whether it's a jump shot, whether it's a three. He has made it where he has stood in front of Embiid, and for the most part, Embiid, a lot of his shots, Igor, are not coming from right next to the rim, which is the key thing. You are making it where there is some sort of distance for Embiid from the hoop. And like we said, the further away Embiid gets from the hoop when he takes his shot, the less percentage it is that it's going in. The stats prove that with Embiid. Kind of like how it is with, you know, Dwight Howard. It's been like that with Shaquille O'Neal when he was playing. The further you manage to push them from the hoop, the less likely the basket was going to go in. And look at it. You know, look at the stats for last night, Igor. When you look at Embiid alone, Embiid played 41 minutes in that game yesterday, scoring 22 points. But shooting, he took 26 shots, Igor, in that game yesterday, which is more than anybody else on both teams, and he only made 10. And if you were to look at that, I would kind of question how many of those shots were point-blank layups or dunks. I would argue there weren't many. And that's because of not only the you know, defense that Baines has been able to play, but Horford himself has kind of basically taken you know, the role of being the second defender on Embiid once, you know, Baines sits down, and he has kind of made it where, you know, he's playing a little bit smarter against Embiid and making it where, you know, he is not going to back down either. But Baines has been critical in this series, and you can argue pretty much that his defense has been one of the reasons that Boston is up, if not the reason that you're up 3-0. If Embiid goes dominating that matchup like the way he did Hassan Whiteside in the first round, then Brad Stevens is forced to kind of change the lineup, or have to change the way you're playing defense. Maybe you got to start double teaming, things like that. And next thing you know, the threes start falling on you from the rest of the players. But Baines, because he has been able to stay up with Embiid and make it where he's basically become a jump shooter pretty much, or a floater or a hook shot, you know, shooter, Baines has made it where Embiid is not comfortable with the shots he's taking in this case, and you can see it. Those type of comments last night, Igor, where he's complaining about the officiating and wanting more calls because he wants more free throws, that's the type of comments you see coming from a player that is frustrated because he isn't having it his way. He isn't dominating and getting the type of shots he's used to. So Baines has been critical, if not the most critical player in this series, because if he doesn't dominate that matchup in terms of defensive-wise the way he has, you probably aren't winning this series right now 3-0. You probably could be losing this series right now 2-1 because of the fact that the threes for Philadelphia would be going in, and these players from the Philadelphia team that haven't been so good, Covington, Saric, McConnell, all these other guys, would already be in their groove right now.
Okay, let us start the individual analysis. The individual analysis is actually like this. We have, of course, common statistics, and we have also the advanced statistics. Let us start with Boston, obviously. Jason Tatum played 41 minutes 30 seconds with Boston. With Boston, 24 points, 11 of 17 field goals, 1 of 4 for threes, which is 25%, not good, but he had 24 points, exceptional performance, plus 24, the team highest. He had 11 out of 17 field goals. He had 1 of 4 free throws. He missed some crucial free throws in the overtime and at the end of regulations. If he hit those free throws, we could have won. But on the other side, he kept us alive in the overtime with his 5 points. In the overtime, Horford scored 7 points and Tatum scored 5 points to keep the Celtics alive. Total rebounds 5, assists, total assists 4, and that's it from Tatum. Al Horford, the hero, 41 minutes, 34 seconds. Excellent defense on Embiid and on Saric. 13 points, plus 4, 5 of 12 shooting, 2 of 3, 0 for 2 for threes, which is not good, but 3 of 4 free throws. He missed 1 free throw in the overtime, if I'm correct. Total rebounds 6, total assists 2, and that's it from Horford. 13 points and 2 steals, 1 steal, key steal at the end of overtime. Practically 7 points in the overtime gave us the win. Aaron Baines, then you explained 7 points. Despite having -8, we will check later advanced statistics. He's shooting 3 out of 7 field goals, 1 of 2 for threes. Against he scored the threes. He had 7 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 fouls on him, -8. Tough presence down low. 23 minutes, 30 seconds, absolute rock tonight. And Steven said tonight he doesn't care about the people dunking over him. Marcus Smart, he has 9 points, 31 minutes, 30 seconds. Not good night for Marcus Smart. He struggled despite having 9 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. He was -7. He kept the composure in the second half after the Sixers made a run by buckets, and actually the stealing the ball from Embiid. And if I'm correct, we ended the half only 51-48 down, only down by 3. Terry Rozier, again, the best game away, 18 points, 7 of 15 field goals, 2 of 8 for threes. He struggled from the threes, and but he didn't make a turnover in 82 minutes, which is impressive. He was -3, but made mistake at the end of regulations when he lost Bellinelli, but made up with a steal in the overtime. And overall, good performance for Terry Rozier, our second best player tonight. The third best player was Jaylen Brown from the bench. He played 29 minutes. He wanted to play 29 minutes, 15 seconds. Despite he has been on the minutes restrictions, Brown said to the staff that he want to play 16 points and 9 rebounds and +3. 3 of 6. He's shooting 3 of 6 for 3, which is very good, 50%. almost double-double, 16 points, 9 rebounds with a hamstring, 4 fouls on him, 1 steal, and +3 in 29 minutes. Absolute monster performance, including the last 2 buckets for the Celtics in the regular time. Brown told the medical staff, let me play, let us win this game, and then I can rest later. Absolute fantastic Jaylen Brown. I cannot express my admiring towards Jaylen Brown. Marcus Morris, 35 minutes, 30 seconds, one, again, great game, 9 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, +13, plus minus, and again, guarded well their centers down low, especially Šarić. Ilyasova went off from time to time, I must say, but he was, of course, the big three, Tatum, Horford, and Terry Rozier had the highest using rating at the game, the highest minutes, 40 plus. The number 4 is Mook Morris, 35 minutes, 30 seconds, and also number 5, Marcus Smart. That is proving you the importance of the players in the Stevens rotations. And number 6 is Baines, 23 minutes and 22. Shane Larkin, important role. He played alongside Smart. He played alongside Rozier. He's controlling the tempo, controlling the pace of the game, as we said it. Now he's even making defensive plays, Danny, and he's really useful. He's changing the pace of the game. The 2 points and +3 in 14 minutes, 30 seconds. That's Shane Larkin. And finally, Semi Ojeleye, one important 3. He was -14 on the court, 4 minutes. We played 9 minutes, practically 8-man rotations. Shemi, number 9, played 4 minutes. So we played 8 minutes rotation, the starting 5, usual, plus Brown, Morris, and Larkin. I must now comment, do you want to say something about individual performance of the players of the Celtics right now, Danny?
Well, I give the Boston Celtics coaching staff credit for trusting Jaylen Brown finally in regards to letting him choose what he wants to do, with his own body and all of that. Like you said, for one, if the kid didn't play in game 1, you had him play on a minutes restriction in game 2, that you kept him on that minutes restriction. It's not like we're playing double, back-to-backs and all that in the playoffs. And, knowing that it was overtime, you only got a 5-minute, 5 minutes more. It's not like, it's going to add too many more minutes. It's not like you're having him play an entire fourth quarter where it's 12 minutes more than the, minute restriction you had on him. And, having him play pretty much might have made you could say that was a major difference in us winning this game or losing it. So I hope, that Brad Stevens and the coaching staff continues to give him the right to choose if he wants to continue or not. Don't go the route of, just trying to hold him down, all because you're worried that he's going to end up having an issue. But he had a great performance yesterday. Jason Tatum, in my opinion, he had the best performance of all. This kid is really proving himself that he's going to possibly be a major star in this league as he gets, to go in his future years. Terry Rozier, like you said, this was his best performance on the road in the playoffs. Of course, hopefully we get a, repeat performance tomorrow night in Game 4. Al Horford, he ended up having, the first, 3.5 quarters weren't really that great. It took him all the way to the fourth quarter pretty much before he finally woke up and, managed to get the job done in this case. But the fact that it looks like Igor pretty much that every one of these games the Boston Celtics have won, 4 players have basically gotten the job done in order for them to win. You know, it's not the same 4 players every game, but it's always been 4 players in this case that have managed to step it up and actually get you the victory. You know, so I give these guys credit. You know, the good thing was that, you know, you look at the the box score in this case, it was a balanced scoring output. You know, it wasn't like what you would see in Cleveland, for example, where one guy goes scoring 40 points or 50 and the rest of the guys are stuck in the, the single digits or the teens or something like that. You know, everybody gave a certain amount of points that were all closely to each other, meaning that you were spreading the wealth, as they say. You know, you were spreading the shots out. Everybody managed to put up, and you can kind of say that, yeah, somebody might have had the best performance, but it was no more important than anybody else. You know, somebody did something that was really important in order for this team to win. Like I said, you look at the Cavs, it's always going to be LeBron, because LeBron ends up scoring 50. The next guy is, the closest he gets to him is with 18 points, so it's always going to be like that. So this team yesterday was a great performance from them. And like I said, Baines nailing another 3. I don't know what has gotten into this guy, since the regular season ended, that he's now added a 3-point shot all of a sudden.
That's really nice.
But that also has become, a critical, element to this series, because of the fact that now that helps bring Embiid out of the paint and allows these guys to attack the rim now if Baines can hit that consistently. We don't, like I say, I don't want him and Smart taking too many threes, but if they can hit the ones they actually do take, it makes those guys have to leave the paint, Embiid and whoever else might want to stick in there, and it leaves the basket wide open for Tatum, Brown, Rozier, to actually do their thing. So it was a great performance overall by these guys. Again, a consistent and equal, performance by everybody. And if they can do it again in Game 4, where everybody's able to put something up that's similar to each other, right around 10 points apiece, with a few of the guys going up around 20, and you shouldn't have a problem ending the series on Monday night.
Okay. Let me tell you and the viewers advanced statistics. Jason Tatum, the highest offensive rating at the team, which is not by surprise, 111.7, and also the best defensive rating, Danny, 76, which means that he has the highest net rating at the team. Again, offensive rating is number of points scored by 100 possessions by one team. Defensive rating is number of points allowed by one team per 100 possessions. The net rating is offensive rating minus defensive rating. Net rating of Jason Tatum is 35.6. Assist rating also, Danny, 16.7%, which is the highest at the team. And also PEE factor at the team, which is actually the usage rating at the team, 27.7%, the highest. Also efficiency field goal percent at the team, Danny, the highest, 67.6%. Now, in pace, the Boston is not playing. In pace, actually, we are playing the highest pace with Jason Tatum, 87.8. And we're playing the slowest pace offense with Shemi Ojole with 111, which is actually understandable. But I want to underline Jason Tatum had stellar performance. he was the best of the team in net rating, offensive rating, defensive rating, assist turnover ratio, and true shooting percentage, efficiency field goal percent, usage percent, the game pace, and PEE. So absolutely the best player on the court, Jason Tatum. Want to comment something, Danny, about him?
Well, like I said, Jason Tatum is proving he's going to be a star in this league. The continued debates over if you're going to make a move, who do you give up, out of these two young players, knowing that it's going to be one of them, Brown or Tatum, that many are going to want, because Terry Rozier right now, with what he has done in these playoffs, in placement of Kyrie Irving due to the injury, Terry Rozier, his stock has gone up in the NBA. He's going to basically, get paid, whether it's with us or whether it's another team. He's going to make his money. The fact that Tatum and Brown are on their rookie deals right now, you're going to be able to pay them, control them over the next few years. These two guys are going to be the ones that the teams that are getting rid of their stars are going to want. Because anybody, whether it's the San Antonio Spurs with Kawhi Leonard or, any other team like that gets rid of their stars, are looking at long-term replacements. And right now, Jason Tatum has pretty much made it clear that if you got to choose one of the two to keep, he is the one you got to go with. Jason Tatum has not only gotten the job done from beyond the arc in terms of the three-point shooting, Jason Tatum has shown no fearlessness when attacking the rim. He is a better free throw shooter than Jaylen Brown is. He has established himself when it comes to the jump shot and finding ways to just get himself open to make sure he gets himself a jump shot. These are several things, Igor, that you look at Jaylen Brown, he just does not have it yet, despite the fact that he's a second-year player in this league. And it is incredible. It is incredible that Jason Tatum has been able to do this in just, like I said, less than a year of being with this team. It is incredible how bad he is making Ben Simmons look, knowing that Ben Simmons has been with Philadelphia under their system, watching these guys play, and being able to learn it for an entire year before playing this year. And yet, Tatum is schooling you in terms of how well these two guys are playing in their first years on the court. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Simmons did not play last year, so this is his first year technically playing, but it's not his first year under Philadelphia. So he's not really a rookie in my eyes, So you can say Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, these two guys have really made a statement in the way they in terms of how well they are compared to the rest of the rookie class from this past summer. And it's incredible. I gotta give Danny Ainge a ton of credit, not only for getting this game, but also suckering that extra first-round draft pick out of the Philadelphia picking league, pretty much. Because, again, you know how many people, especially if we win tomorrow night, you know how many people are going to be not only upset, the fans leaving the arena if Tatum basically has another monster performance, but you know how many people in that organization are going to be looking to kick that general manager in the rear end if they're not looking to do it already. If Ben Simmons does not put up tomorrow night, or Tatum basically outplays him and it ends up being the difference in that game tomorrow. Jason Tatum, to me, he's established himself as a future star. He is one that Danny Ainge cannot afford to lose.
Okay, let us continue with analyzing advanced statistics of the Celtics last night. Al Horford, 41 minutes 34 seconds, also the highest, second highest to Terry Rozier playing time. Al Horford 103.5 offensive rating and 92.4 the defensive rating. 103.5 offensive rating and 92.4 defensive rating. 11.2 the net rating. He's having the third highest net rating, and Marcus Morris has the second highest net rating. But when you look at the other parameters, Al Horford, for example, efficiency field goal not so well, 41.7%. True shooting, 47 not so well. Usage percent, not the highest at the team. The highest usage percent, Danny, no surprise, Tatum. But the second highest usage percent, Jaylen Brown. Maybe surprised, maybe not, considering he's hurt, right? And Marcus Morris, the third usage. Marcus Smart, the third usage rating, 23.6%. That is not surprise too, Now, the fourth usage rating has Marcus Morris, 20.1 usage rating. And the fifth, Al Horford, 19.2. What does it mean? I think actually that Horford can play better the game 4. And that we didn't use him, proved by the numbers, as much as we could in the first 3 quarters of the game. What do you say?
Well, like you said, it's understandable that, the usage margin or the usage rate for Tatum and Rozier would be so high because, the top 4 players right now on this roster are Horford, Rozier, Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. Those guys are the only ones that have some sort of scoring talent, along with Marcus Morris, I guess you can say. They're the only ones you can say that actually do have like some sort of a shooting ability. Marcus Smart is, like the 5th best player right now on this team, but he is not one that you want to be seeing taking a ton of shots. He has never really developed a shot, even though we know he can make the shots, but you do not want him taking too many. And yesterday, you saw why. So it's if Jaylen Brown wasn't injured, his numbers would be right up there with Brown, or should I say with Tatum and Rozier at nearly 40, minutes. Horford, because he's an older player, veteran, you do got to give him some time, and because of the fact that he's banging with Baines, against Embiid, he's going to take a little bit more, time to recuperate while he's sitting on the bench because he's got the hardest matchup of all. It's much more, difficult for those guys when they're facing someone like Embiid, who's got that type of body, than when they are facing someone like Antetokounmpo, who really, in this case, he's all about just running up and down the court and trying to get everything in transition or going for the alley-oops in transition. So it's, a situation yesterday where Brad Stevens, he looked at it and felt, we got a chance to win this. I'm going to go all in. He finally realized my guys are young. I'm going to make sure we try to take this series up 3-0. I'm going to throw them in. I'm going to let them I'm going to let them rest later on. Forget about the worrying about the minutes. You want to rest? You rest later on. You get out there and you basically go ahead and win this. Now, I also think, Igor, that the situation with this thing with the, confetti coming down may have also played a role in this case because that was that did give disruption in this, between the overtime and the 4th quarter that is longer than what usually ends up happening as they had to clean up everything. So that kind of aided, and that was something that the announcers were kind of saying that this might help Boston more than it helps Philadelphia, because now whatever momentum Philadelphia had off, Bellinelli's shot, with them having all the, hype and all that, now it brings them down a level. Now they got to go back to resetting themselves because now the game came to a halt. That also meant that Horford, Tatum, Rozier, they were all able to rest, sitting back, waiting until the floor was clamped up, and then go the entire overtime period. So, Brad Stevens, he played it the right way, and I expect it to be like that the rest of the series. Those two guys, will play over 40 minutes if they have to. And Jaylen Brown, once he's cleared that he is back to being 100% healthy, which I don't think it will happen until the end of this series, which is why for us winning the next game and ending this series is critical because, of course, from what I read earlier today, if this is true, the start of the conference finals would not take place until around the 13th or the 14th. So if that ends up happening, if you win tomorrow, you're talking about nearly a week off, in this case for the Celtics, to actually recover. Now, of course, we all know that Cleveland and Toronto are also in a 3-0 series with Cleveland winning. So if Cleveland wins tomorrow night in Game 4 on their home court, then that series is done as well. And now LeBron and his team would have, the time to rest as well. So if both us and Cleveland are rested, then, both teams will probably be fully healthy going into that Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, we're still missing Kyrie, Hayward, and Daniel Theis, while they won't be missing anybody that's critical to their lineup. But, this situation here with the Celtics, I don't think anything will stop Brad Stevens from letting those guys play over 40 minutes unless the game is a blowout where we're giving them a whooping or vice versa, they're giving us a whipping. If not, I think that's the only way it'll be stopped, Igor. So I give Brad Stevens credit for throwing those guys back in early in the fourth quarter because it seemed like
we will discuss the lineups a little later. We're discussing just individual performances now. Yeah, I have the lineups
because it looked like every quarter at the very end, despite the fact that we were the better team for the most part, our guys just seemed to blow the lead, and we were down after the quarters. In the first half, at least, it was the third quarter that we finally had the lead after the third, going into the fourth, and then eventually they took the lead to start the fourth.
So Brad Stevens threw them right back in. Get your rear ends back out there. I do not want to lose this.
This lead fall too far behind. It's not often that I see Brad Stevens do that. Usually he's willing to keep the bench in there for a long time and let the guys rest up until, 8-7 minutes left in the game. No, he threw them right back in there in this case. He's got to continue to be committed to do that in order for us to win Game 4 tomorrow night.
Okay, let us continue with, again, analyzing individual performances. The third guy starter, Aron Baynes. We talk about him. I will just run quickly. Aron Baynes has 91.7 offensive rating, not the highest one. We know that he's not the best offensive player, though he's hitting threes, which is good. The defensive rating, 100.3, a little higher than it used to be when it's about Aron Baynes, because he is the top 5 defenders in the regular season NBA of all the players. But that is because he's guarding Embiid. Embiid didn't blossom over Baynes the last night. He even complained to the officials. It was funny, really, the Embiid, because Baynes is physical with him, just like a crybaby. Net rating was minus 8.6. Efficiency field goal and true shooting percent 50%. And PEE is 12.3. Aron Baynes. And overall, despite negative net rating, very good performance by Baynes. What do you say?
Well, like you said, the plus minus doesn't really tell the story in this case. Embiid is somebody who is going to constantly complain unless he gets it his way. We said it earlier when it comes to, the way he was, the way the officiating went. The only game this series that has been arguably 100% fair in any sort of way has been game 2. But yesterday, that game, with Embiid, he didn't really have the type of game that we have seen in the first 2. Even though he had those highlight dunks where he dunked on Baines and he dunked one on Horford, Baines has been able to give this guy some incredible issues that I don't think you see too many players in this league do. And I think Embiid has really gotten frustrated by it, Igor. And you don't see somebody come out and talk crap like that. Pretty much all Embiid has done in this series has been basically talk. The stuff he said after game 1, we were rusty. That's what this loss was. After game 2, it was basically our shots just weren't going down. I got to blame myself because we didn't play, better defense. The Boston fans, they ain't nothing. Our audience is better. And then yesterday, the officiating. The officiating didn't call for me. I don't know how. I don't get a call made against Horford. There ain't nobody that can defend me without getting fouls. How many times are you going to keep bringing stuff like that up and keep talking without actually proving it on the court? We have our guys playing through the contact and playing through the fouls. Yeah, they argue with the refs, but our guys, unless there's been something absolutely egregious, you don't see our guys complaining about it, too often. This guy every game has had nothing but some sort of complaint pretty much to make or some sort of an excuse that he's had to use. And like I said, unless Baines moves to the side, Igor, and gives him a wide open lane, gives him a red carpet pretty much to go straight to the hoop like he's a darn celebrity, go ahead, give him a nice drum roll so he can go for a nice highlight dunk. He ain't gonna be satisfied, pretty much. So that matchup there has been, like I said, critical. In this case, Baines has been incredible, and whatever he adds on offense, Igor, to me is icing on the cake. His job has been to stop Embiid and make sure he's not having any of those monster Embiid performances that we saw in round 1 against Miami. And other than game 2, it's basically been just that. He's been stopped, and that's literally it. So Embiid, like I said, the plus negative doesn't really tell the whole story in this case because of how the plus negative actually works. But Baines yesterday had another great performance, and Embiid didn't. And you could tell he was frustrated when he was talking in that post-game locker room, conversation. And he let his, voices be heard because he's trying to influence the officials for the next game to try and call for him. And I'm sure if they even call for him and give him more free throws, the guy can take 50 free throws next game. And if we win, he's still going to be complaining, saying, I wanted 100.
Yeah, you're totally correct. And let us just run through the numbers. Marcus Smart, net rating minus 6.1. I said not the best game. Terry Rozier, positive net rating 3.2. Positive game, very important role. Top 3 best players, besides Tatum and Brown. At the game, Marcus Morris, I want to talk about him again. Danny, he has the defensive rating that is second highest at the team, 80. And offensive rating, not the highest one, but 102.7 on his reputation mark. What does that mean? That he's having the second highest net rating, 22.7. And that is not by accident, Also, like I said, Marcus Morris is having the third high, the 1, 2, 3, the fourth highest usage rate at the last game, besides Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. What does that mean? Usage percent is percent of the offensive actions in which Jaylen Brown, for example, was involved, of all possessions of the Boston Celtics. Okay, so I mean, Marcus Smart is the second highest net rating, Danny. Very important role. Can we say some good words about him?
Well, like I said, Marcus Morris, you know, him being on the floor, even though he's not making shots, him being on the floor has an effect, you know, because of the fact that when he's out there with, you know, the lineup of Horford, Rozier, Tatum, and Brown, that makes it where you have 5 3-point shooters on the floor. And pretty much the 76ers have no choice but to bring Embiid out of the paint. That now makes it where if Embiid is guarding Horford, for example, we saw in Game 2 here in Boston, one of those final possessions where Horford sealed the deal, Embiid was defending him, and Horford just ran right by Embiid to get the game-winning layup to seal it. They know Embiid cannot defend Horford. He can't stay in front of him. So you put Embiid in front of Horford, and there's nobody guarding the paint. Horford is just going to go right around him and get to the rim. If Embiid stays back because he doesn't want that, Horford has a wide open 3. He can nail it. You put Embiid on Morris, Morris is capable of nailing a 3. So you got, you know, so it's pick your poison. Do you stay back and let Morris take the 3, or do you stay up on Morris? You know, Morris unfortunately is not as agile as Horford, so I don't think Morris can really get around Embiid as easily as Horford does. You know, but he can still try. And if he does get around Embiid, Embiid either has to choose letting the layup go and letting us score, or committing a foul. But like I said, you saw it last night. Once Embiid fouls out or has to come out of the game, they don't have anybody else on that roster that is a good rim protector. So they have no choice but to allow us to attack the rim, and we basically can take advantage of that. So Morris just being on the floor plays a critical role. Now, if he's making his shots, unlike last night where he really didn't do too great, you know, shooting-wise, if he's making his shots, that as well is going to make it where there's even more pressure now on Philadelphia and these guys, because now they know they have to get on Morris. In this case, they can't risk him taking any threes, because now you know, I'd rather give up the 2 than give up a 3-pointer, especially if we're not getting any baskets on the other side, if our threes are not going down. At least if we're just giving up a 2, we can try to, you know, negate the 2 with free throws or with layups or jumpers. If we're giving up threes and Redick, Saric, Covington, and all these guys ain't making the 3-pointers, you know, we are not going to catch up to these guys. They're just going to keep building the lead 1 point by 1 point by 1 point because of it. So Morris plays a critical role in this series. It's just that he's got to make these shots. He's got to start making his shots go down in order to really put the pressure up. Like you said, Igor, right now you have your foot on the throat of this team. You know, you don't have it all the way. You know, you got it right now on the throat. You let Morris in the next game start making shots on top of whatever Rozier, Tatum, Horford, and Brown have been doing, forget it. That pretty much is the game. There ain't no way Philly's going to stop you if Rozier, Tatum, Brown, Horford, and Morris are all balling in the next game. You can pretty much, you know, take the death papers for Philadelphia, send it to the City Hall, and let them know that they basically now have to set up the funeral arrangements, things like that, that they died basically a suffocation, that you put your foot in their throat and suffocated them. As simple as that. You know, if Morris has a good game, Boston is really it's hard to beat us with 5 guys scoring. But unfortunately, Morris hasn't really had a great playoff so far this year. The first round, he had like 1 or 2 decent games. That was really it. And I think so far through 3 games here, he's only had 1 good game. Morris has not played as good as he did during the regular season. I don't know what it is that has caused him to basically kind of lose the Marcus Morris we all saw in the regular season. But if he can play like that tomorrow night, where he looks like he did in the regular season, and he goes for almost 20 points or something like that, Philadelphia is not going to be able to stop you. It's as simple as that.
Okay, let me finish with Shane Larkin 9.3, positive impact 94, and offensive rating 84, defensive rating 9.4. What is interesting, Daniel, we have actually Larkin has been good in slowing the pace, and those combinations with Smart and Terry Rozier has been really good for the Celtics in changing the tempo of the game, controlling the pace of the game, and controlling the possessions, because the Celtics are playing low possessions game for the Sixers. If you notice, in the first half, the Sixers played like 52 possessions, if I'm correct, and in the third, we slowed them down to 42, in the second half, 42 possessions. So we are doing well that possession game with the guys like Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier, and especially Shane Larkin. Your opinion about Larkin? Again, positive net rating plus 9.7.
Well, Larkin has always been a reliable player at in most cases. Other than that, period where he basically really didn't give you much, and of course during that time, that was after he came back from the injury, where it took him some time to kind of get back into a groove. It's kind of come down to a debate, Igor, with me, where I figure, who do you want kind of running the point guard position in this case? Do you want Larkin doing it with Marcus Smart basically being a shooter, or do you want Marcus Smart? Because there's been some pretty bad turnovers at times with Marcus Smart and Larkin on the floor together, and it's usually been Marcus Smart who's been the one committing them. And I've kind of said, maybe we would prefer for Larkin to be the one to run the point. The only issue with that is that Larkin is the better shooter of the 2 players. So if you do that, you're risking Smart taking a lot of shots. So it's almost like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, in a way. But Larkin, in this case, I feel he's just in there, Igor, kind of like to give Terry Rozier a break right now. And if he can get you a few baskets, even if it's 2 or 3 during his period in there, and play some stellar defense, then he's doing what you paid him for. As simple as that. Larkin would not be playing right now if Kyrie Irving was on the floor able to play in this series. But he is getting the job done. So you got to give him credit. He is doing what he needs to do. As Bill Belichick says, he's doing his job. As simple as that. And the few points he basically did put up yesterday proved critical in this case, because again, you only won by 3. So all the points that came from the guys that you wouldn't expect to score, the points from Ojale, Baines, Larkin, all of them basically proved very important. And Larkin, like I said, I trust him right now more with the ball as a point guard than I do Marcus Smart. But the problem is, if it's Marcus Smart and Larkin on the floor, do you trust Marcus Smart more with the ball as a passer, or do you trust Marcus Smart more with the ball as a shooter? That's the question.
Okay, let us run finally throughout Philadelphia stuff. We said, I'm going to just analyze the points. We said that Philadelphia needs from Embiid and Simmons some production. Okay, they got the production 38 points. It's not enough in my view in order Philadelphia to win. So again, in the game number 1, 48 points from superstars. In the game number 2, 21 points from them. In the game number 3, somewhere in the middle, like 38. Right. So those guys are capable to score 50 on you. They scored 38. That is giving credit to the Celtics defense on those two guys. But the guys like Šarić scored the supporting cast. Let me calculate. Dario Šarić, he scored 11 points. Then JJ Redick, as usually, between 18 and 92 points. Tonight he scored 18. From the bench, Marco Bellinelli hit some ridiculous shots. He was good. So as Ersan Ilyasova, 14. Again, just like in game number 2, Danny, supporting cast in the game 2 was 55 points. 55 points from Dario Šarić, JJ Redick, Marco Bellinelli, Ersan Ilyasova, those 4 guys. The guy who totally failed was Robert Covington, minus 12, 0 for 8 field goals, including 0 for 5 for threes. That 5th row guy totally failed. He was horrible the last night, including giving up the Horford's last basket at the overtime. So those guys, the other 4 rollers, they did their job, 55 points. But the superstars just didn't produce enough points, didn't squeeze enough points for Philadelphia to win the game. Your opinion?
Well, if you're talking about Covington, look, this guy is, to me, he's been a waste of money, Igor, for this Philadelphia team. Regardless of whatever stats you people want to throw up, this guy, in most cases, from what I've seen throughout, his career, and of course we all know there's not many, it hasn't been like it's a really long career like a LeBron or a Curry or something like that. But in the really big games, for the most part, this guy never seems to bring it. This series, many people, if we sweep them, many people are going to be able to look at him as the reason why. He's had only one game that was really great, which was game 2, which again the 76ers blew that 22-point lead to us before we ultimately won. But overall, it seems like this guy just really isn't, how would you say, he just really isn't locked in. He really isn't putting much of an effort. He just really isn't trying. You see Redick, you see Embiid, you see Simmons. Those guys are running all over the court. They're running after the loose balls, all these things. Covington, you don't really see the same effort, the same hustle from this guy that you see from these other critical players from Philadelphia. And it's sad, again, I'll accept it because we want Boston to win this series, but it is sad to see that from one of your starting 5 players, and, at least with Ben Simmons, it's understandable why he has so much trouble, Igor, knowing the guys he has defending him. But come on, with Covington, you're a starter right now. You're playing. You don't have someone like a Horford defending you. In this case, you should be able to put up a decent amount of points. This guy, Igor, is barely getting any shots off in most cases. So it is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, and I will not be surprised if we see some fans in Philadelphia trying to say, let's trade this guy, give him up, something like that. If his contract doesn't expire, of course, that's something we would have to look at. But I would not be surprised if Philadelphia looks to get rid of him if his contract does go beyond this season, because he just doesn't look like he's giving much of an effort out there.
Okay, let us run through some important things from the game. Daniel, Al Horford's late layup leads Boston Celtics over Philadelphia. As we know it, the confetti went off too soon. Philadelphia should have won any number of times. Boston still were without two of their best players. One of most tense, tight games in the postseason could end with one of most chaotic finish. Boston and Philadelphia exchanged blows for hard-fought game Saturday. Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum both showed bright future, and it was a combination of Stevens' last-second play call in overtime, high-pressure defense down the stretch, and Al Horford's clutch baskets. They gave the Celtics 101-98 wins and 3-0 leads in the Eastern Conference semifinals. With 5.5 seconds left at the Celtics down one in overtime, Horford hit a layup to put the Celtics up one. The Sixers proceeded to turn ball over, and Horford made pair of free throws at the other end, putting the cap on the wild game. The Celtics looked like they were in danger of yet another slow start from the field on the road in front of the hostile crowd, but Tatum, who looked less and less like rookie, continued start 14-2 run late in the first with a pair of jumpers. The Celtics finished the first quarter within one. Boston took the lead in the second quarter on a barrage of three-pointers and stretched the advantage as high as 10. But the Sixers roared back with massive 25-6 run, capped by another poster on Aaron Baines by Embiid. Foul trouble plagued the Celtics in the first half. Tatum and Brown picked three. Tatum going to the bench. Coincidence with Philadelphia run, but the Celtics closed the gap to three at the halftime. The second half was tricky, dramatic, as both teams turned the ball over, and it was tied. The score was tied 75, 77, 79, 81, 83. That set up the dramatic final minute. The Celtics appeared to have a win, and Brown with second left. Bellinelli's Bellinelli's jumper sent the game to overtime. Now the clutch. The Sixers run to 5 points advantage in the overtime, but the Celtics worked their way back to the game thanks to Tatum. Tatum clutch layups drew the closer, gave the Celtics chance to tie and to take over lead 8.4 seconds. That set up Horford's layup and a win. Tatum finished with 24 points, Rozier 18, Brown 16, and Embiid scored 22 points and 19 rebound performance. Game 4 will take place Philadelphia Monday 6 p.m. Eastern. Do you have something more to say, Danny? By the way, I have to say something. Brad Stevens, after Atos dominator Saturday game, offered another reminder how Stevens is good coach. Twice drew up crucial play. The first, Jaylen Brown tying layup with 24 seconds in bonding from, in front of the Celtics bench. Stevens had Brown start in near corner, dart towards the elbow to feint the screen, then fade back towards the rim, where he caught the inbound pass, hesitation once, then scored. Abusing note, Stevens called the timeout mid-possession just prior to the play. Marcus Morris gathered the ball and went to attempt to the mid-range jumper. The second, Al Horford go-ahead basket. The Stevens run an action where Horford screened as a Tatum darted towards inbound and Brown towards the top of the three-point line. Joel Embiid, who was guarded by Horford, switched to Brown, who carried the Philadelphia's best shoot blocker out of frame. Tatum continued towards the sidelines. It left Horford matched to Robert Covington 1-1. Fatal turnovers for Philly. Blundered, the Sixers gave up the key turnovers. JJ Redick's inbound pass set up Brown's transition layup, stalled by Rozier, and the Celtics were up 89-87. And then the Simmons turned the ball over, pass to Embiid, but stalled by Horford. Horford instead slide around Embiid and reach the arm, deflect the pass, and then leading to steal. Philadelphia foul. Horford, he drained the free throws. That was the final score. I mean, about the Simmons we talk about. I don't care about Bane's posters. Your idiot Embiid posters. I can say that you are one idiot if you care about Embiid dunking over Baines, because Steven said that it's obvious Baines doesn't care about it and the Celtics doesn't care about it. And let me tell you something. If you trash the guy like Baines, who is just doing his work in contesting the Embiid's dunks, you should be just ashamed, you know, because all Baines is doing is just do his job. Danny, do you have something to add on Game 3?
Well, again, you just said it there. It'll be pretty ridiculous for any of the fans out there to be doing any trash talking right now on Aaron Baines, knowing that their boy Embiid is now down 3-0 to Baines. You know, Embiid, like I said, has done the most trash talking of any player in this series, and yet has not backed up any of it after 3 games. You know, and like we said, no team, you know, you and me have mentioned it, many people have mentioned it since after the game yesterday. No team in history has come back from down 3-0. You know, the media mentioned it to Brett Brown, and of course he tried to downplay it in this case, like why can't we be the one to get it, you know, to get that done. But, you know, still, you are someone that is like really trying to go nuts over your big man dunking on another player. If this was Covington, Igor, dunking on Baines, then maybe we have something to talk about, because this is a smaller guy dunking on a big guy. You know, it kind of reminds me of like when Jeff Green used to do it on some of the tall guys, you know, when he used to play for us. But come on, you're talking about a 7-foot guy in this case, close to 7-foot tall guy, doing a dunk on another 7-foot guy. One that, of course, has not gotten the benefit of the officials in most cases. You know, your 7-foot guy goes for a dunk. Our guy tries to stand there to get the foul call and goes down hoping that there's an offensive foul call. And the officials, if anything, have either let the contact go and your guy gets a dunk, or it's been an and one for your player. And like I said, your building was rocking yesterday after those 2 dunks. At the end of the day, everybody goes back like they got hit in the face with a fish or something like that, pretty much. Everybody is devastated. You all look like you're ready to go into a state of depression, you know, after what happened. And it's the Boston players and Baines who are celebrating. Next time, why don't you wait until after the game is over to actually start talking about the dunks and celebrating Embiid's, you know, accomplishment with the dunk, because it's obvious it was Baines who got the last laugh, pretty much. His 3 was more important than Embiid's dunk, because if you can, of course, you can say, yeah, his 3 though came earlier in the game, but we all know Baines is not a good 3-point shooter, Igor. If Baines doesn't make that 1 3 that the Celtic that he made, you end up tied, or you end up losing the game, for all we know. He makes that 1 3, and it's a different ball game. So It's ridiculous, Igor. But I guess again, the fans have to have something to celebrate out in Philadelphia, and that's what it is. Their player getting dunks, and as usual, it's the Boston people who are celebrating the wins. The only thing in Philadelphia they've gotten to celebrate over Boston as of late has been the Super Bowl from this past February in this case. Now we'll see how many years it takes before they're able to celebrate again over us. It's going to be a while because with this roster, if you can't even beat us right now without Kyrie and Gordon, ain't no way you're going to beat us next year with Kyrie and Irving. Kyrie Irving and Gordon.
Okay, finally, the game number 4 tomorrow, again, Philadelphia, as I said, favorites 6.5 points, apparently, by Vegas. Can we say something about that?
Well, it's just another example of them being disrespectful to this team, you know. You can kind of say that with some of these people, it's just that they don't want to admit that they were wrong. Some of them just don't want to jump off the bandwagon that they have been riding the entire season. You know, look at the way it's been. The thing is, tomorrow's game is at 6 p.m., meaning some of these shows that we all watch, like ESPN First Take with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, or Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, for example. All these shows, Igor, that had these people giving their predictions, all of them chose Philadelphia to beat Boston. Most of them chose it to end in 5. 6 games, the latest. Not too many chose for it to go 7. And no one chose Boston to win this series. How many of them do you think are going to come out and admit they were wrong? This Boston team is better than what I thought. And then give us credit and not blame Philly instead for the mistakes they have made that actually have made it 3-0 in this series. They won't come out and admit, I disrespected this Boston team and I disrespected the coaching ability of Brad Stevens. Some of them won't come out and say that he is the best coach in the NBA and that he has now proven it, and that you basically now can say that there is no other coach in the NBA that basically should be put ahead of him in this league, and that maybe the only one you can even try giving any consideration to is Greg Popovich, and that is only out of respect for Greg Popovich due to what he has done during his
in San Antonio, you know. But Brad Stevens has proven he is better than any other coach right now out there in the NBA. Don't give me anything with Steve Kerr because he's got 4 All-Stars on that team to basically help him. Take him out of that team and give him to any other team, basically. Do you think he does anything like Brad Stevens is doing right now if he's over here with this Boston roster? Heck no. Do you think Dwayne Casey up in Toronto is able to do what he's doing right now with this roster if he was to come down to Boston? No way. It's as simple as that. Brad Stevens has been able to get the most off this roster, probably more than anybody else in the NBA could probably do in this case. All these other coaches have needed some sort of 2 All-Star players on their team in order to have some sort of a chance to actually make it to the second round or beyond. We're looking at now going around 3, and you only have 1 All-Star on your team. And this is an All-Star in Al Horford, who is not even how can you say, an elite scorer. He's had to play like an elite scorer in this playoffs because you lost your 2 elite scorers. But other than that, with Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward there, he isn't someone that's going to go scoring a lot like he's been doing in this case. You know, so this situation, Igor, for me, it's, you know, pretty much simple in this case. You know, you are now headed to the next round. It's only a matter of how many games does it take our guys to just finally, you know, pull the plug. The 76ers, they're on life support, Igor. They're on the bed.
Yeah.
They got the wires. You know, the IV is in them. They got the wires on the head. They got the wires on their fingers and all of that. You know, they got the heart rate monitor going. It's all about how long is it for the Celtics to tell the doctor, pull the plug. I don't want them to suffer anymore. Do we end it tomorrow? Do we basically let them continue to live until, Wednesday? Or do we basically continue to go? A team like Golden State, a team like Cleveland, a team like, Houston would end it tomorrow when they have the opportunity. Our guys, if they really want to prove that they are the better team, they would end it tomorrow. As simple as that in this case. But like I said, these people are just going to continue. The more games that they go, Igor, the more confidence, like you said earlier, the more confidence you're going to give to Philly and their fans that there is a chance that they can come back. But the more right you're going to give to those Vegas people and these insiders that disrespected you from the very beginning, pretty much from the moment. Forget about from the beginning of the playoffs. From the moment you lost Kyrie Irving, it's been nothing but disrespect headed your way, despite the fact that you picked up some pretty big wins without Kyrie Irving this season. It is going to give those people the right to say that Boston isn't going to have a chance against Cleveland, and Boston can still lose this series. You end it tomorrow night, and you make it where those people now have to come out on Tuesday morning and admit we were wrong, and we might have to consider Boston may have a shot to beat Cleveland now, because Cleveland is going to be in the same predicament that Philadelphia and Milwaukee were. One legit player in LeBron James, one legit player for Philly and Embiid, one legit player in Milwaukee and Antetokounmpo. Is that one legit player enough to outscore the entire Boston team? What type of game plan does Brad Stevens come up with? And can Brad Stevens outcoach LeBron James? Because we all know LeBron is the coach of that team. The coach that they have there, Ty Lue in this case, or Tyronn Lue, whatever his name is, that guy really doesn't do any coaching. It's LeBron. So who is going to prove to be the better coach? Is it Brad Stevens that comes up with some sort of a game plan to basically get Boston to come out on top, or to even push? Heck, you don't even have to win the series against LeBron, Igor, and the Cavs. If you even push LeBron the distance, you force it to Game 7 or something like that. That in itself is going to scream volumes in this case, because of the fact that's going to let LeBron know my time is up. To take a nice quote from John Cena's music, you're telling LeBron, telling LeBron, in this case, your time is up, my time is now. In this case, that is exactly what you're going to be saying to him. His time is up in terms of reigning supreme in the Eastern Conference. Your time is now in this case, because now it's going to be where if you couldn't even beat us quickly in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you didn't even have us playing, or should I say, you had us playing without Kyrie and Gordon, and we pushed you to the limit, there ain't no way you're going to be able to stay with that Cleveland team and beat us next year, knowing that roster is going to be the same, and we're going to have our best players available, and somehow you think you're going to still come out on top. So Boston, you end it tomorrow, right, Igor? You end it tomorrow.
Right.
Don't give them any sort of hope or any sort of thought. You basically crush the dreams for Philadelphia, crush the dreams for their fans, end it tomorrow. Make all those insiders look stupid. Please, do us the favor. Make them look stupid for doubting you and disrespecting you and not apologizing. Make it where we're all going to have fun, Igor. Not only watching those fans walk out of the arena, some of them are probably going to be falling down the staircase. Some of them are probably going to be, with their heads down, not wanting to leave the arena, wondering what happened. Did they have to do that to us? They just couldn't give us one game. Do it tomorrow. Do us the favor so that Tuesday morning, the people in Boston at least will be able to enjoy themselves watching these sports channels and seeing all these people have to admit we were wrong and we might be wrong about the next round as well.
Yeah, I don't expect the Sixers to come back from this kind of you know the troubles, and I expect the Sixers to choke again, simply because simply because they're a young team, and I don't think that they have the mental stability nor the leadership like Boston to survive during the series like this. This is still learning experience from them. If we're talking about Sixers, Embiid, and Simmons 2 years from now, 2020, maybe they would come back. But these Sixers, absolutely not. I mean, even if they win the game 4 somehow, and the only way to win game 4, in my opinion, is to win both fast break points, then points in the paint, second chance points, and especially 3 points battle. If Sixers win 3 points battle by big margin, 10 plus points, I think that they can win the game, And the Celtics must play the better offense. The offense last night was really, really bad. So the Celtics must play better offense, and we must close the series and rest Jaylen Brown and be ready for Cavaliers, because they will sweep Toronto Chokers without, LeBron Chokers without any doubt in my mind. Anyway, it was enjoyable, Danny. That was chat number 33, recap of the game number 3, round 2. Eastern Conference semifinals between Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers in Wells Fargo Center, Philadelphia. Boston won 101-98 after overtime. Al Horford 7 points, Tatum 5 points in the overtime. That would be all from us. Danny, the next show is Tuesday, 8 May, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be recapping game 4 in the series. We certainly hope this will be the last game of the series, and that Celtics will surprise NBA world by sweeping the Sixers tomorrow and put them in the right place where they belong. So the Celtics, please finish off the Sixers tomorrow and take some rest. That's all from us. The next show, search us on blogtalkradio.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Celtics Talk Radio, iTunes also, and Apple. And we're wishing you good night, all the best, until the next video chat. And that will be the Game 5 recap, if the Game 5 is needed. That's all from me. Daniel?
Yep, so like you said, Igor, hopefully our guys do end it tomorrow night. As I said, the report I saw said that the conference finals would not start until the 13th or the 14th. So we'll wait to see if that is correct in this case. But that would give, if that is true, give Jaylen Brown plenty of time to rest. If you get the job done tomorrow and make it where you can give him that time, it will be incredible to give him that opportunity. So like that, he's able to start game 1 against the Cavaliers, which again, it's incredible how you're looking at that same matchup as last year, despite the fact that you're missing your 2 best players. So that says a lot about this team and a lot about Brad Stevens. So again, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night, the Celtics take on the 76ers, game 4. We will see you Tuesday night on blogtalkradio.com at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And hopefully we will be talking about a game 4 victory and a series sweep, and what this means now for the Boston Celtics going to the 3rd round of the NBA playoffs. So until then, we'll see you again Tuesday night.